Y'all wanna get turned? I heard that you trying to go climb to the top. I start from the bottom, it's kinda like putting on socks. You ready? Yeah. Y'all ready or not? Don't let me get hot, though. Clean like a mop, whole world is shot. This place gon' knock, this place gon' rock. Y'all ready or not? Ready or not? You ready or not? You ready or not? Pay my dues, punch that clock. You ready or not? You ready or ready or not? You ready or not? You ready or not? You ready or not? Pay my dues, touch that clock. Ready or not? You ready or
Hey, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Pain to Profits. I'm your host, Samson Jagoras, and every single week, twice a week, we bring on entrepreneurs to help you guys save time and level up on the entrepreneurial journey as you start, buy, build, and get ready to potentially sell your business. And today, I'm super pumped and excited to have my friend, a fellow entrepreneur, a hustler, a grinder of an entrepreneur, Brian Trainor, on the show. But before we jump into that, if you guys have not gone over to the website and subscribed to our free weekly newsletter, Street Smarts, we drop at same time, same place, every single week to help you guys level up on your entrepreneurship across leadership, finance, growth, operations, product, service, sales, and marketing. I promise it'll be the best email that you get all week, or I'll fire myself. But now to the man, the myth, the legend, the shadow of a being, Brian Trainor, man. Welcome to the show, bro. How are you?
I'm good, man. Thank you for letting me come on.
So I'm gonna start. We're gonna let people get to know you a little bit, because the way we very first met was just your background in athletics.
Yep.
You were a thrower.
Mm-hmm.
You were on your way to actually pursue the Olympics.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And how the heck did you get into that? How did you become a
man? Grew up as a kid, wanted to be a football player. I'm a little bigger, right? And
how tall are you?
6'5".
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, I just dreamed about 6'5" my whole life. Never even cracked 6 foot.
But now, bro, you can go to like the store, just buy regular old clothes.
Yeah,
right?
and I don't have to be a big
Blessing,
tall store.
for sure.
Yeah.
So man, I was playing football as just a high school football kid. My dad helped coach, and they wanted me to get in the weight room, and I loved baseball. But they said, hey, you need to go out for track, because we can, they're both going to go be track coaches just so they can keep me in the weight room, right?
Right.
And I ended up doing okay. And had some football visits, had some college football visits, and some track visits. And in all honesty, man, my track visit, I showed up. They had like 30 kids on the field, boys and girls, all running around in spandex. You know what I mean? And they're getting ready to go to California for a week. And I had never at that point been on a plane, and I'd never seen the ocean, right? And I'm like, so you guys are all going, California, ocean, plane, all that, and I'll sign up for that, right? So that's how I ended up in track, honestly. And I was good at state championship a couple times, and then through college, and then with track you can just keep going, right? Somebody can tell you stop or not, but you just keep throwing. So I competed until 2016, tried out for 3 different Olympics, never made a team, but did well. I would say I was like the kind of the worst of the best, if you will.
Yeah.
So at any given time, there's maybe 4 to 6 guys in the U.S. that have that Olympic standard that can go on and they can make a team, right? And so I was always one of those guys. So
how old were you in 2016?
36.
Okay.
Yeah, so I
wow.
retired at
That's
36.
a long career.
Yeah, it was long, and everything was falling apart, right? I'd lift and something would pop, and it was like every day, man. And so I wasn't throwing all that great. My wife ended up having a tumor that had cancer in it, like during that season. I was in Lubbock, Texas, got that call, like, hey, there's cancer here. And I had 2 meet, like I was going to do like a Tuesday, Thursday meets in Lubbock, and just left on Wednesday, never threw again. Yeah. And, but it wasn't like I had to give anything up. I mean, I was done,
Yeah, I know that feeling.
It's just that you ever watched, there's a show, Longmire. I never really watched it, but I remember it was on TV, and I heard this cowboy in the background, and he was doing this cowboy poetry. And there's this line that said, like, a good death is hard to find. And dude, that hit me hard that year. And I was like, that is so true.
Yeah, you just know
you
when
just
it's
hope
done.
for a good death as an athlete, right? And if there's athletes out there listening, that there's a moment, if you've taken your career far enough, where you go those little sneaky things come up in the back of your mind, just like a sweet little ACL tear.
Yeah,
I wouldn't have to quit really, but I could say, hey, this is a career ender. You know what I mean? And I think you kind of secretly hope for that a little bit. So yeah, man, that's how we connected, was just in the gym. I mean,
yep.
I see a lot of friends in weight rooms around the. I'll pop in and lift places just because the gym's been that consistent thing in my life, my whole life, right? I would break in 7th grade, 8th grade. I don't know if I missed, dude, I might have missed 15 days from 7th grade to my senior year of high school.
I loved
it became therapy. It's where I get my head squared up. So it's a big piece of life for me, man.
I was a thrower too. I threw in high school.
Oh, did you really?
The only reason I did it is because the strength coach was also the throwing coach.
Yep.
And
exactly.
so I could lift all off season,
And that's what
he
they
was
do,
an
right?
incredible Oli coach.
Mm-hmm.
So I just did that consistently. But I think one of the things that you and I also connect on is, as an entrepreneur running a business, taking care of your health, aging well, being able to, run at the top of your game is super important. So I do. It's ritualistic for me. I'm every single morning, same time.
Morning.
Yep. Exactly.
And I'll usually go, like, if I have like a rough day, like I have weight room at the house too. So it's like, it's funny. Like I have a full on like proper weight room at the house. Right. And then like, but I'll pop into other gyms too, just cause like I mess with new machines or whatever. But dude, the consistency of that space for me has been like my constant in life. Right. And it can become kind of it's spiritual for me. I have a dry erase board in the weight room where I'll take notes. I'll put a podcast on some days, a lot of days, and I'll just dig in on something. Right. And I'm like, even in this gym here before you guys owned it. Yep. I mean, these dry erase boards, I mean, I didn't give a shit. If there's other people working out, I'm like, this is mine. Like I'm taking it over, and I would listen and I'd be making notes. I'm like,
it's definitely a good place to clear your head.
It is, and you only have so much time, dude. Like I got 2 kids and multiple businesses and my and my hobbies and things I want to do, and so if I can stack a couple things, then I will. And so that's
and you hunt a lot now too, right?
Hunt a lot, man.
Yeah. What do you like to hunt for?
Everything that moves. No, I especially like a backcountry elk hunt. Archery elk, it's one of the hardest things you can do. And so if I can get back, I'll go 6 to 10 days, right, where I'm just back there.
Dang, dude.
Yeah.
The only thing I've ever shot was birds.
Yeah. And
Which
there's guys that fall in love with that too, right? But it's for me, it's that journey of like just me alone, or with a couple buddies on the side of a mountain. Yeah. And so that's been another piece that I've really fallen in love with.
Where'd you grow up?
Southeast Colorado, La Junta, Colorado. So Ordway, but I never say that because it's such a small town. Nobody knows where it's at, right? So Southeast, grew up kind of farm ranch community, Yeah.
Were you ranching?
No, man. We lived sort of just out of town as a kid. Had family that was in the ranching business, so I spent a lot of time in the summers. That's where I'd work. I'd go work either ranch or farm stacking hay. And that's a tough deal, man. Like you got to learn how to work hard, right? Like I remember one time I stacked hay for a guy all day long, and I stacked it wrong. I was new to the game, right? And dude, he called my dad and he goes, "Hey, Brian stacked this hay wrong." And so my dad drove me back out there, and it was dark. And I had to move that I just moved the stack from like here to there, just over, and restack the whole thing the right way. Yeah. And that's just like lesson learned,
Wow, it's a good lesson though,
dude, bro. Yeah, and it's like
attention to
can wait
details.
till tomorrow, but
yeah, sure can. If you're going to be an entrepreneur, there's lots of things that could wait until tomorrow.
It could wait till tomorrow. So good lessons there, man. And so, yeah, that's how we met. I mean, that's really how I got up here. Athlete, playing that kind of the athlete game, and just really getting into. That's where I found all of myself, what I mean? And really, I think any young athlete, they'll say that, like, those coaches and that influence they play in your life, all of those principles play into what we're talking about today.
Were you always an entrepreneur, or did that something kind of spark later in life?
Yeah, I was always an entrepreneur. Yeah. I mean, I came up here, dude, I'd moved out of my house when I was, in high school. And, so I graduated on a Saturday, packed my stuff on Sunday, drove up to Colorado State on Monday. Wow. With like $800 and just my tools and like a couple things, and no place to live either. Like not thinking like, all right, like I'm going to show up at this track and there's going to be somebody there. Now I look back, I'm like, what were you thinking? Like if nobody had been there, right? So I show up and there's like a current like national champion, somebody who just finished second place in the nation and a European champion training, and my coach. And I pull up to the track and I go out there, and coach's like, what the hell are you doing here, trainer? And I'm like, dude, you gave me a scholarship.
I'm here to work. I'm
here to work. And he's like, you're not supposed to be here for like 3 months. He's like, where are you going to stay? I don't know,
Good
coach.
question, coach.
Yeah.
And so
he's just like, all right, Casey, can you sleep on your couch for a couple of days, right? So I crashed on Casey's couch. Started calling every like sublease on this like Rams Point like sublease list, and I was like, I'll give you $300 for the summer, right? I got through like 3 pages of people telling me to go eat shit, and finally some dude was like, yeah, man, I'll take it, So I went and gave him $300 cash, and then like 2 days later, I'm in that same house with no phone. Like, no, this is like pre-cell phone, really. It was. I didn't have a cell phone, and the house phone rings, and this guy calls me like, hey, dude, like, where's Carlos? And I'm like, he's at the pool, And this dude's like, tell him he's fired, right? And I'm like, what's his job, right? And he's cleaning movie theaters. And I was like, I'll do it.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, within a week, I was like waiting tables, cleaning movie theaters, and I was moving old mattresses for this furniture store. And then I was slinging these mattresses on the side too. So I'd like found like people like for $20, I'll get you a twin. For 30, I'll get you a king. You know what I mean? So like as I was supposed to take them to the dump, I'd make like a little lap, right? And like sell these mattresses to college kids. I made flyers, and like if they were like okay still, I'd like sell them a used mattress, right? So I'd like take his truck and like drive around town and drop off mattresses.
That is awesome.
Yeah, just to make a little cash, right? So.
And then 3 months later, you officially got put on scholarship. Did you move
so
into
3
the
months
dorms?
later, I got put on scholarship, moved in the dorms. Didn't like living in the dorms. Got a doctor to write me a note saying I was malnourished. Dead serious, man. And I took
Malnourished
it
in
to,
what way?
because you couldn't. I don't even know. But I had a guy up in the
You look
dorm.
at this guy; he's definitely not.
Wasn't malnourished, bro. And like, so this room, this kid like a couple doors down, Mark Williams, he's like, hey, a doctor's note. Anything. You can do anything in life with a doctor's note. And I think I've done a good job of like, it's like I've like learning these rules, right? Of like how the world turns. And it's like, okay, roger that. And so I called the family doc, would you write me a letter? She's like, yeah, sure. So she writes me a note like, hey, Brian's malnourished. He needs to move out. Because they wouldn't let you move out as an athlete, right?
Right.
So I take the note and I'm like, coach, if they give me permission, can I move? And so I moved in like this little apartment with this guy, Tim Marquez, who's my roommate. So me and Timmy move in. I live in the closet, right? Now, every time I'm like, just like, because I'm looking at it like it's $1,500 or whatever I can save, right? And I can get out of here. So I moved out after the Christmas break there.
That's amazing.
Dude, yeah.
And then coming out of college,
yeah.
Did you know, hey, I'm going to go start my own business?
No, man, I had gotten a teaching degree. I was a big piece of what I wanted to do is I thought, hey, I want to be an athlete. I'll have my summers off. I can coach and be around this world of athletics still.
Yeah.
So I taught for 2 years, and then kind of in that space, just really found like, man, like no matter how hard I work, like the guy across the hall is still making the same amount of money. It was nothing, right?
Yeah.
My brother and I had started a construction company at the same time, so there was a week I worked 70 hours in the construction side, coming in like having like 2 hours of sleep. I was actually, you probably don't know Mike O'Hearn's gym in Fort Collins, but we were drywalling that thing. It was one of our jobs we had. And just getting in and going, I have no idea what I'm teaching today. Like, I'm just like, whatever, man. Like, let's just go. And I went in like that same day and I was like, I got to quit. You know? So I quit. And then we tried to buy a construction company. We tried to buy an excavation company and changed up their operation along the way. The guy that we were buying it from was like, hey, I'm dying. I got ulcers. I can't do this anymore. I'm like, cool, we'll do it. And he was going to owner finance. We doubled his business in that year, and he decided he didn't want to sell anymore.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So lesson one, right?
Lesson one was what? Have a good contract?
Have a good contract in place. Dude, I spent a lot of money on attorneys and CPAs looking at the business, thinking that's like, I'll just hire the guys that, we didn't have any money to hire those guys either, dude. It was just like every penny I had to get it done. So in the middle of buying that or trying to buy it, we worked on a lot of different things. He mobilized too often. We stopped moving guys around. I hired 2 guys that could be on a shovel. And this is really early. I did a good job of recognizing, like, okay, keep your high dollar guy in the machine. Put a guy on a shovel for $15 an hour, and we can. Then I went to the project managers. Like, can I do 4 basements at a time? Can we just dig 4 holes? Yeah, sure. Because we were just doing a hole here, and then we'd drive across town, dig a hole over there.
Yeah,
and so inefficient, man. So we just added some efficiencies, bought bulk and some materials. His business grew, and he's like, no, I don't want to sell anymore, which is a blessing, dude. Like, thank God, right?
Yeah. So what'd you do then?
So then my neighbor was a realtor, and I looked at him and I'm like, this bro is like going on a Saturday and making as much as I'm making in a whole month. Easy, So I went and got my real estate license at that point.
How old were you?
25.
Okay, wow.
Yeah.
I didn't realize you were selling real estate that long. I mean, I knew you were killing it.
Yeah, we're pushing on 20 years now.
Wow.
It's crazy. Gray hair, bro.
Yeah.
It's coming in. Yeah.
It's coming in.
It is. So I mean, that's man, there's so many pieces in between all that,
So did you pick real estate because of the money?
Yeah, 100%.
But did you find that you actually liked it?
I did like it. Yeah, I liked it. I liked that I could work kind of like, because I would still do construction stuff, right? So I'd go in the morning, like 7 o'clock, go set tile, have my realtor close in the car.
Right.
And then come noon, I could sit in an open house, and I could go do that. So I could triple dip, I could do like 2 or 3 things, and I could sit in an open house. You never know when a dollar bill is going to walk in the door at that point.
Right.
I could be working the phone, And so I just found it as a good lever.
Yeah, and then along the way, you built 970 Services.
We did, man. So we started flipping houses 2007.
Okay.
And then about like a year into that, we kind of noticed like 6 or 7 guys are showing up every day. They think they have a job. And so we said, let's just kind of start to take on other projects for people.
Yeah.
In that we were looking at the books one day. My brother and I had like bought this property, and we had this chicken coop that was our office, right? It was an acre, so we could store stuff on it. And I'm looking at books, and I'm like, hey man, like these roofs, like they make good money.
Yeah.
I said, how many phone calls do you make to that roof? And my brother's like, oh man, like 4 or 5. I said, let's just do a bunch of those.
Yeah.
So we got 2 trades. You got 2 phone calls for trades. You can run it, and you're in and out. It's a roof. Nobody really cares about their roof,
And you were subcontracting out the work?
We subcontract everything,
Yeah.
in that business, yeah.
And then obviously just supports what you were doing and
supported what we were doing. It flowed well. It fit in well. And so we stepped into that. We had just had the floods here, so we stepped into the restoration side too, similar to the guys next door here. But like water, fire mitigation, anything that has to do with like insurance. And we just come out of the back end of like the recession there. And I wanted something that was a little bit recession proof, right? So it's like, okay, people are always going to need a roof, man. Like,
yes,
you aren't going to just live with a leak, right? So,
yeah, people always having fires. Unfortunately, there's always natural disasters, floods, etc.
And that's a fun place to actually step in and be like a really a positive piece of that experience if you can do a good job for people.
Yeah. So what's that business look like today?
Today it's run by, my brother and our general manager. So we had he's my age. We had a guy step in that, he had run another company and it's funny, man. Like I had met him in college once, twice. I have a place up in Wyoming that it's a fishing cabin and he was going to go use it. And just in giving him the key, like I looked at him and I was like, I'm going to hire this dude, and I just knew it right then.
You could sense it.
Totally. And so literally that day I called him. I go, I think I want you to run my roofing company. And he's just like, what, dude? And
what was it about him that was?
I don't know, man.
Because that's a real skill. I feel like I have that as well, but it's come with time. You can just size somebody up and see their potential.
Yeah. Yeah.
Man, I don't even look for specifically in people.
No. Well, yes, I suppose. But with him, I was just like, man, this guy's taken it was a landscape company. He's been there for 10 years. I knew just in this quick talk, and they had acquired 2 other companies in the meantime. And he was running like 50 guys. And I'm like, all right, this guy can do what I need him to do. I could just sense that he was like in a transition. I could tell. I was like, he's getting ready to move. And I've always been able to do that, right? Like I've always been like, oh, you're going to leave. Like even with our guys, our employees that are going to leave, I'll call my brother or one of the other guys that are running, say, that particular company. I'm like, hey, so-and-so's on their way out.
That's the nuance of picking up on human cues.
That human energy, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so they'll be like, what are you talking about? I'm like, oh, yeah. They're on their way out. And then sure shit, like a week later, they'll be like, hey, I found something else to do. I'm like, I knew it,
Crazy. When you started 970, did you guys have an investor? Was there money?
No.
How'd you start?
We had a partner that we brought in that had started a restaurant business, and he had that kind of that acumen around the numbers, right?
Got it.
And so I just knew we needed that. I knew we needed somebody to kind of fill that gap for us. So we brought him in as a partner, and he was with us for about 1.5 years, and then he moved. He was at an age where he was moving on in life anyway, and so we ended up buying him out. Which sucked, man. Honestly, so now if I start a company with say 3 guys, right? I'll put in provisions where there is no buyout for the first 3 years.
Yeah.
And even at year 2, or say year 4, you only get 25% of the value of what your company's worth.
Yeah. Can we dig on that? Because that's a valuable lesson. I think partnerships are something that is incredibly important. One, because sometimes people have great product ideas, but they're not great at sales and marketing. So they need to go find these people. Yeah. They're not good at finance. They need to backfill that stuff. But I also think people jump into partnerships way too early without really knowing the person that they're getting into bed with.
Yes.
And then they structure these deals that later they regret.
Yeah.
What would you suggest for somebody who's looking for a partner beyond obviously just the semantics of structuring the contract? But what's your words of advice around partnerships?
Man, I think it takes a lot to learn. Like if you learn to know yourself really well. So I think that's we can just say that and leave it there. But know yourself, right? Learn yourself and learn if you have too much of an ego around it, you're not going to find the right guy because you think you got it all and you just don't, right?
Right.
And so I love partnerships, but I think that never make a partner out of somebody you can just hire, right? Especially when it's like a part-time bro, just hire the guy, right? Hire him or give him a little piece. But you don't have to give him a partnership. You can give him a piece of the net or something, right? You give him say 5% of what we play off the back end here or something, but you never want to, if you don't have to make them a partner, don't, right? Because they're hard to navigate. And the worst thing that can happen to you is you have a good year, you have a big year, say you're number 3, right? You go, boom, all right, we made a bunch of money. And that partner decides I'm going to exit the company.
Right.
Bro, your value's up, but you don't actually have any cash, right? You've got enough for the growth you need to grow next year, but you don't have money.
Yeah.
You think you do, right? And so he comes in and he goes, hey, I don't want mine. And that's $200,000. And that's everything you got plus some, right? And so now you're left with 0 cash going into Q1 of the next year with nothing, and you're going to die. You just are. So that exit of a partner can kill you. And so that's why I put some stop gaps in place there with partnerships.
Oh, that is incredibly important, man. Tremendous.
So as far as hiring, but you asked, and I don't, if you don't have to make a partner, don't. But if you, but there's some real power in those partnerships too if you do it right. Right. Yeah.
For me, a partnership's always been about somebody's filling a gap in my skill set. Right?
100%.
And on top of that, they're bringing insight and wisdom and growth, like optimization, ideology, talent to the business.
Yeah.
If I always have to just tell you what to do all the time, and you just do what I tell you, then you're not partner material. You're just an employee.
I think it happens a lot with investors when people bring in an investor, and you've learned this term, but like smart money, right?
Yeah.
And I used to hear it when I was younger. Oh, we want smart money. I'm like, what's that even mean, right? Yeah. But really, smart money, when somebody comes in, you go, okay, cool. You're going to bring me a couple $100 million or whatever, not a couple $100 million, but like a couple 100,000 or $1 million. But I want smart money too, right? And you can be picky. I think there's a lot more money out there than people think.
Yeah.
And be picky about it. Like, okay, great, you're gonna bring me the money, but then you're just gonna call me every quarter and go, where's my dividend check, right? That is not the guy you want. You're better off just not even doing it.
100%. I'm doing one right now where we're consulting plus consulting for equity.
Yes.
And what I bring to the table is, 15 plus years of strategy.
Mm-hmm.
So knowing how to orchestrate a business.
Yeah.
And get him, who's the CEO, who's also like the main driver of the business, kind of out of being the bottleneck, and free him up to actually be a business owner instead of getting owned by his business.
For sure.
He's a small company doing $500,000 a year with him and one like 3/4 of a person, right? Like, you're killing it. You're doing a great job.
Yeah.
But what happens if something happens to you, right? We don't have a business anymore. So he sees the value in me and the partnership and us being able to consult for equity in that way, shape.
Right. And I think a lot of times when, my brother and I had this saying, like, what got us here won't get us there. Right.
Totally.
And like the skills that got you there usually are also going to be the very same skills that are going to bottleneck the company and stop growth.
Yes.
Right. And it's really hard. Your ego takes a big old hit, man, when you're the guy that founded. You're a founder, right? This big noun. Right?
Everybody loves that
then
term.
like the reality is there's probably a guy out there that needs to be running your company for you when you get to that point. And then as the founder, you go do what got you there, right? So like you just continue to develop those relationships. You stay front of the company versus moving to the back of the company where you're behind closed doors. And oftentimes I think that kills these small businesses is like, this is relationships, especially small community businesses.
Right.
We learned some lessons from All Phase next door here. I love these guys, nothing against them, but like when they grew, they're way bigger than us, by the way. But like when they grew, they moved to the back office, right? Yeah. And they were strategically and tactically running the company. But I knew because I was out in the field, like, well, that hurt them because the people that they grew relationships wanted to see their face still.
Yeah.
So I took that note and I said, okay, I'm going to keep my brother in the front and let him continue to be the face. So when so-and-so calls, he answers his cell phone and goes, yes, man, what do you need? And you can put a lot of people behind the curtain and nobody will ever know. And you can grow and continue to have that small business feel.
So good.
And he gets to keep doing what he loves, right? A lot of times we put ourselves in a position we don't actually like what we're doing anymore because we moved out like that core competency piece or just that thing that we naturally do as a young entrepreneur.
Yeah, that's so good, dude. Yeah, I mean, we can come up with a million ideas in the next hour and say we founded a company.
Yeah.
But few people ever get into the position where they actually own a business. They're just getting owned. They have a glorified job, way riskier, way more stressful.
Yeah, dude.
And they don't realize that it's like you kind of have more of like this split personality when you found a company.
Yeah.
You're the business owner. And the business owner has the CEO below him. And then below the CEO is the chief growth officer. And then below the chief growth officer is the chief operating officer. Yeah. And below that person is the employee. Yeah. And you're playing all those roles in the company. And they get stuck in this employee role. And they don't know how to they don't know how to elevate themselves up to pure business owner. Like that's you're just buying back time. You're reinvesting capital in, getting right people in the right seat, orchestrating the business so that one day in the future, you have this asset that could be sold. You're building future optionality. But instead, what happens right now, and we're seeing a lot with these baby boomers as they're getting ready to exit the market, is they have glorified jobs. Right?
They do.
And,
so many people buy a job.
Oh, your business is worth $20 million, but you're going to have a 7-year earnout as we unwind you from the business. It's like, I'm ready to retire.
And you back out taxes out of that too. By the time you get done, you're like, you don't actually have anything, man.
100%.
You got the real estate. If you're smart enough to buy the building you live in, that's usually what most of what the business equity is that real estate.
100%. Man, that was so good. If you could go back, would you do anything differently? Like what wisdom would you impart on yourself?
I would have loved to see myself take like some just basic level, like just finance classes at the university level, right? So I did like scuba diving stuff, right? Like I should have just not
the extracurricular.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, oh,
so I mean, they were paying for it, right? So I mean, the value today, if I could go sit in on some of those classes. Now, is there anything real world about that? No, but I would learn how to like a balance sheet reads. You know what I mean? And the P&Ls, and then What's AR even mean? I had to learn what P&L meant, what AR means, AP means, what's COGS, right? All these things that like, I wish, somebody, if you guys don't, just dumb those down, man. Make it easy for guys like us to just kind of go, okay, I get it enough to where I know that I'm like, my CFO's not an idiot.
The best thing that I did from a finance standpoint was I was trying to get really good at real estate investing.
Yeah.
And so I found a mentor and got really good at financial modeling for real estate.
Yeah.
Which is like the simplest P&L business ever, right?
Yeah, there's like 4 numbers, You're
just doing it at scale on multifamily. You know how to plug it in and actually read the rent roll, understand profit and loss, and then see where you can turn the little dials in order to enhance the business.
Yes.
Best thing I ever did, because now I can pull up any business and I can apply that same concept, any P&L that comes across my desk, and feel competent to go build a financial model to actually see how it all plays out.
Absolutely. And just knowing the levers, I get to hunt a little bit with that guy named Kip Folks, one of the founders of Under Armour, right? And,
okay, cool.
And asking Kip, like, well, okay, man, what's the key? And he put it really simply. He's like, just intimate knowledge of your customer, and then know what levers you're going to pull to get to more customers, right? And just understanding what lever are we pulling today. And that's what you're doing, right? You're sitting there behind the dashboard, tinkering. And if you don't tinker on your business, it's just not going to work, man.
Yeah, there's like businesses like 3 parts. So you got the foundational pieces of just like, hey, this is where we're going and formulating the business. You got the structural pieces, team, processes, systems.
Yes.
And then you got the functional pieces. That's what I call the thermostat.
Yeah.
The temperature is always changing, so you're constantly moving the thermostat.
Yeah.
Whether it's driving more leads, changing your pricing, repackaging your offering, losing people, hiring people.
And you will, right? And it's like, and I talk a lot about like blueprint, right, of a house. And you can have 2 guys go out, same hammer, same tools, and one guy's got a good set of blueprints and one guy's got nothing, right? And the other guy, and this guy with nothing might be working way harder, right? In 4 months in, this thing's going to fall down because he didn't build on a blueprint, right? And so you're both working hard, right? And I think that's that thing we go like, it's that warrior mentality of going like, well, I'm working hard. And you go, yeah, but you're not building on anything, man. There's no blueprint here. So what are you putting? Why, right? Tell me why, right? So,
and that's the skill set of entrepreneurship is it's not the tools that make the carpenter, it's the carpenter that makes the tools, right? So you might be coming out of a career where you got a ton of experience in sales, but you don't know anything about finance.
No.
Right? You don't know anything about marketing.
Yep.
And so that'll carry you so far.
It'll kill you. Like actually, that's probably your worst skill set, right? It's like, I'm a really good salesman.
Yeah.
Great. Right?
Terrible
You're
fulfillment.
Bring all those orders in and like you will die. You will die.
Yeah, because you can close them, but you can't fulfill.
Yeah.
And churn is your biggest enemy if you're trying to build a real business.
Yes.
It's constant. It's ever changing. I feel like every 2 years, any business that I have is like making a big shift because the market's changing, the market's moving.
Hopefully, right?
Yeah.
Hopefully, yeah. Because there's opportunity in that shift, right?
Oh, 100%.
You take a bigger piece of the pie because other people aren't going to navigate that and they're not going to respond. And so like where we're at today, like we're in a shift. We are, right?
Yeah,
and
massive.
It's like, if you look at it and go, okay, this is time to grow my pie, right? I'm going to get more foundationally bigger. I might not grow like up, but I'm going to grow out.
Yep.
And just just trust. And you might even starve a little bit through this little time. You might be hungry, but it's just like, know that I'm growing.
Why do you think we're going so hard on the podcast?
Yeah.
Why we're going so hard on YouTube and TikTok and Twitter and LinkedIn, and like now's the time because when everybody's scared and running away, we're just planting seeds in our garden and we're watering the crap out of them.
Yeah.
Every piece of content we create, we say is like a future investment. It's just, the content might not hit now, but 6 months from now, 8 months from now, 10 months from now, I'll have 10 times more content than the next guy who's trying to do what I'm doing.
Yeah. Yep.
And that's the key. And that's the hardest part about entrepreneurship is you're doing work that's not necessarily producing fruit day one. And it's knowing that doing it will result in some sort of outcome in the future.
Oh, absolutely. Like I talked to my wife about that this morning because she's like, how are you doing? I'm like, I'm toast, man. Like I've been going hard for a couple months now. And I got a deal I'm working where there's an opportunity created where it'll almost immediately net us like $1 million in worth of real estate. Yeah. But I can't eat that tomorrow. Right. And so it's like this balance, right. Of going like, I've been working hard, but I haven't, like our checking account can look dismal.
Yes.
But it's like this future thing. Right. And so how do you just balancing that? Right.
Yeah.
And you got to be able to change those hats day to day and focus on that. Right. So focus long-term, focus short-term, long-term, short-term.
Yeah. How do you make decisions like that, on building equity, which like you said, is great, but you can't live off of that.
No.
And then it's going to require some sort of capital infusion of sorts, which drains the bank account.
It does.
Which also potentially limits you from other opportunities in the future. Like, do you have a filter or a litmus test that you run that through in order to make those decisions?
It's getting better. Like when you're young and I grew up, when I came up here, right, I'd already moved out of my home. I didn't, I didn't have any money. So we started this thing with $0. You never do it like everybody says, like self-made, which is not true, right? Like you drive on a road that somebody else built for you, bro.
Yeah,
so like,
totally.
let's recognize like that you're on the backs of giants, as people say, right? But like for the most part, had nothing, right? And so yes was the answer to every opportunity. And you just took more time, more grind. And now it's changing, that shift, right? So like for the longest time, I never had an office. I'd always give my office to like the next employee. I'd move. And recently we bought another, actually your old Madwire building off of Highway 34. So we bought that. And
I was in that building a few months ago.
oh, were you really?
Yeah, it was with Hunter.
With Hunter and them, yeah. So like I just said, like I want this building, I want this, and I'm going to take the top floor, and I'm going to take this nice little office here.
Sweet.
But it was intentional to kind of plant myself in a space and go, okay, from here you're going to do your work. Like if you've ever like done any work on like the archetypes of like lover, joker, or lover magician, really is how I like to think of it, and then warrior and king. Have you kind of dug in on that in your own personal space?
Yeah. What's the personalities, the test that goes along with that?
And I haven't done that. I've been working a lot on just like we grow up as an entrepreneur. You start as a warrior. You have to live as a warrior, right? You sleep under trees. You're killing your supper every night.
Yeah.
And as you move into that king seat at the table, you're not doing that as much. You got to put that away a little bit, and you have to step back and think. And the best thing we can do for our business at that point is think,
Right.
But that's a hard transition to make, especially if you cut your teeth for me, 15, 20 years on sleeping under trees. Like literally we'd sleep in our flips, right? Like we'd sleep in a sleeping bag, at drywall all over it, and sleep for 3 hours, wake up and go again. Right.
Yep.
And so, but that transition for me has actually been pretty hard. Yeah.
Yeah. Ascending from the doer, the worker bee,
Yeah. Yep.
to truly like the pure CEO.
Yeah.
That's hard. Definitely an identity shift.
Identity shift. It's hard on the ego, there's all kinds of things.
In what way?
You're the wins, the W's, man, like they go to your guys now,
Sure.
like the only phone call I get is like bullshit, right? Like, hey, we lost this, we screwed this up, we got a problem.
Bad stuff.
That's it. Right. But those wins, like you're the team, they don't call you, like if you own multiple companies, like where we're at, where I'm at, it's like, they call you sometimes on the wins, but for the most part, they celebrate those internally.
Right.
And then if there's a problem, hey, there's a lawsuit coming down. Oh, awesome.
Sweet. Can't
Thanks
wait.
for calling, man. I mean, like they don't come upstairs to like tell me like, hey, like we had a win today,
Yeah.
very often. And so it's hard on the ego in the way that like you are handing those wins out. Like you're not handing them out, but like you want to feel like they would call you and go like, dude, I appreciate you. Like, I remember like, hey, those 10 years of like all this like led up to this win. You don't get those very often.
Warrior, king. What's the magician?
Magician would be that part of you where you're looking at that deal flow, maybe stacking that deal up. Right. So you get to put on, and I love putting on that magician hat of like, how can I
Putting it all together.
Putting it all together, dude. Right. Like
Yeah.
finding the right guys, the right team. And then how are you going to make that team flow together? Cause there's a big piece of that. Like if you're going to put 4 warriors at the table and you want 4 warriors at the table running your company, those guys slit throats, dude.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And there's ego in that, and that's okay. Right. It's like you put 4 quarterbacks.
Right.
So you have to learn to navigate that, which means you need to sit in that king seat and see them, celebrate them, lift them up, but then also put them in the right flow, right? And say, okay, like, how are we going to work together to do this thing?
Yeah. Do you foresee yourself at some point in the future hiring, because you alluded to this earlier, hiring a CEO and actually just being the business owner and like not being the person running the company?
Yeah. I mean, I think like with some of the companies, we have that type of person in place at this point, right? Where we have guys that are acting like a CEO or gals. And so, yeah, eventually, right? And, I think you daydream on the exit of some of the companies along the way. And so I think for me, where I'm at now, there's 5 companies that live underneath our umbrella.
Yep.
And so I really probably am more in that really like, we have a full-time CPA, full-time attorney at this point, full-time marketing director gal that then
For all the companies.
for all the companies.
Yep.
Yeah. And then that's our structure a little bit that I've always dreamt about, was like multiple companies where, I saw early on, like my brother is a technician through and through, right? And he's so good, so good. But I saw like, what trips him up is like all these little things in between, right?
Yeah.
And so like if I can take those things away from him, and if I can think about, all right, where are we going directionally? Like, okay, then, from a financial standpoint. So we do have sort of a CEO for all the companies. This one guy that's a CPA that really, he sends me weekly or monthly. He'll send me the reports on just, okay, and I pretty much just always scroll down to the bottom right and just see if it's like in red or if it's in blue,
So how do you tackle that when maybe something's going sideways from your seat now?
Something's always going sideways.
Yeah, but from your seat as the king,
Yeah.
Because I was listening the other day to a guy who runs a private equity shop.
Yeah.
And he was saying that CEOs will include you when you hire them. They'll include you in the dialogue around what they want to do
Right.
or how they're managing the company.
Right.
But they'll always just do what they want to do anyways.
Yeah.
And he
Yeah,
said,
yeah.
if you got to just be cool with that, because you hired somebody based off of their values and who
Yeah.
they are and their
Mhm,
skill
mhm.
set. And if you don't let them do that, you always try to go in and helicopter
Yeah.
parent them.
Yeah.
They'll resent you, and then
Yeah.
they leave, and you're up shit creek anyways.
Yeah.
But how do you handle that from the seat that you're sitting in now?
Yeah. Man, that's tough. I think that's probably something I'm still working on. I'm tripping on a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you generally do? Like, okay, we got to get in there, fix this thing, and
No, I try not to I did that early on. I would, my coach had told me at one point, he's like, you can't come into the boardroom, take a shit on the table and then leave. You know what I mean? And so I really try and not open my mouth, because I think that there's like this triangulation of leadership that happens if I step into a company and there's employees in there, or there's like that second, third, fourth in command, and I step in and I start talking, right? Then that does not help the company.
cutting the legs out from your CEO.
Yeah. And so I try not to talk too much. And if I do, I tend to apologize and say, like, by the way, this is your call. Right. But ultimately, like, if I do, I'll do that separately and go, hey, I think I see something.
Yeah.
What do you think about that? Right. And how do you think maybe we should navigate that piece?
Can we walk through those 5 companies? What are they?
Yeah. So we talked about 970 Services. It does, we focus on anything really insurance related, right? So hail, or just roofing in general, then water damage and fire damage, and some mold remediation on structures, so residential stuff.
Cool.
We have a coatings company called Epoxy Colorado that's now will be called All American Garage Floors. So we're planting 2 new locations. So we'll go into the Montana area and
Oh, wow.
Salt Lake City. So we're working through like, okay, now how, like, taking one of my brothers that was like out in the field more, and now he's moving up into this, like, okay, now your job is create SOP, right? And
Right.
thinking through all of these things around how do you plant a location, how do we keep the standard high, you know? And so that's All American Garage Floors at this point. So they do coatings really, so it's commercial, residential, epoxy type coatings. We have Beyond Blue Media that how you met Hunter through
Marketing,
their
right.
marketing side, and that came from Madwire Media. We used Madwire early on, and then I just wanted a little more personal touch there, and kind of plucked Hunter from Madwire just to do our businesses initially.
Yep.
And I said, hey, if you do this well, let's go try and find more, and then it worked okay, right?
Yeah. The dude's special though for his age, being like 25.
We hired him when he's 19.
I know, it's great.
20.
That's a different pod for a different day, but that's
Yeah, for
amazing.
sure. Well, it was key for me with Hunters. He came in and I said, okay, what are you reading right now? Because that's always a question for me. And he's like, boom, 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 boom. Right.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, let's check all the right boxes. And he's a grinder, dude. That millennial group of kids is like totally gets shit on, man. Like,
Yeah, it's
dude, they're savages. Okay, so there's like 10% of them, they're savages, right? And the rest of them, dude, they live in that, like, we're going to rent it life, right? They rent their music, they rent their house, rent their car, rent their
right.
scooters. You know what I mean? They own nothing, right? It's a different mentality, and that's fine, but we'll play with that, right? And there's opportunity in that too from a business standpoint.
Heck yeah. So then that's 3. What's
Sorry,
the 4th?
so Beyond Blue, then H3 Construction, Vertus Construction. It has 2 names at this point as well. So as these companies grow, right, you kind of find like the name that you had maybe doesn't apply as well to what you're doing.
Well, yeah,
So-
like Colorado Coatings doesn't work in Montana.
not at all, right?
Yeah.
So you got to change it. So that's something to think about. Like if you think, oh, 970 Services, we branded because we wanted to be here, but it's going to be Green Top Roofing as we grow into other locations.
Which is what your logo looks
It's
like.
already built. Yeah, exactly. So it'll change. The name of that'll change over the next couple of years as we grow.
Yeah. Cool.
So
is that
that's
home building?
home building. Yeah. So custom home building. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So they're up in mostly Grand County now, which is over in the hills.
Okay.
And then we have United Precision Engineering. We acquired them really just by partnership. We took equity and said, we'll help you grow.
Right.
And that actually has moved into, we did it for construction for the structure side. And the engineer that was there, they really are more machinery engineers. And so we ended up, we were doing a facility for a hemp business, and saw how they were cleaning their seeds and things. And he said, hey, man, there's machinery for this. I've engineered it. So we started importing machinery about 4 years ago for that.
Wow.
And now that is actually called Hemp Processing Partner. So it's dual names as well. So we imported machinery for a year, did well, sold about $3.5 million worth of stuff the second year. And then hemp has been a nasty, filthy journey of it crashing. And so that's been a real experience for me. Right.
Yeah.
So
Is there a market for hemp in terms of like futures or commodities and
There-
a way that you can hedge your bets on that?
Yeah, there will be. I think that the CBD game is done. What you're seeing a lot from like the industrial side is how it's going to apply to like the fiber industrial piece of hemp, which is where it started.
Right.
So it started in fiber industrial. Hey, we want to make T-shirts and we want to make new commodities out of this thing. That's where it'll go, but it's going to take a long time. It's going to take a long time to create a new commodity in the industrial space is really hard, man. To get a plastics manufacturer to switch a line where they go, yeah, sure, I'll do it, but I need 100 million pounds. You know what I mean? A quarter.
Yeah.
Like there's no farmer growing that. No, there's not enough. And that's where we land, is in the middle between the farmer and that industrial user, is like this machinery to take that plant apart and create a commodity out of it. So that's where we spend a lot of our time, and that's where I spend most of my time today. Is because that's a heavy lift, that company. The others are easy, man. Construction's easy compared to, inserting yourself into that industrial space and then into a new commodity altogether. But we've got a lot of stuff on the government side where they're coming in with this green energy thing. Carbon neutrality is a big piece of that.
Yeah.
So we'll shift our marketing and shift our branding and our messaging toward carbon neutral, right? So a lot of companies 2030, they want to be carbon neutral.
Right.
Hemp plays a big piece in that just because it's grown, it sequesters carbon there. You put it into a piece of wood or a table or insulation in the house, or into your drywall, and it continues to sequester carbon. So
oh wow, that's amazing.
So that's where it'll play in. I wouldn't invest in anything. On the back end, you'd have to be. It would not be a passive investment. If you wanted to, actively invest in it, I think it's probably a good place to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it sounds like now from your seat, from the king seat, it's like you step in, take over a new company. You're the one that kind of does all the business development.
Yeah, I would find
get the ball rolling.
Yep.
And then build the team. Step out. Good to the next one.
Yep. That's the idea.
Is there a path of growth that you're focusing on? Like, hey, we're trying to build, a hub and spoke model with these companies inside of our ecosystem, or is it more opportunistic?
It's definitely more opportunistic. I don't think I really knew. And there's definitely companies that I'm not good at running. The marketing company is one of them. Yeah. I'm with Hunter. I'm there's times when I'm like, man, I could see him wanting to just buy us out because I don't bring a lot of value in that company right now.
Yeah.
I wish I did, but I don't know it as well, man. You know what I mean? A guy like you'd be a much better partner for a guy like that.
Yeah.
Right. But it's just, sometimes you're just dumb enough to start a company, and that's what we need, is that stupid guy that says, I'll just bang my head against the wall for long enough to get it started.
Right.
And that's kind of what we were able to do with Hunter. He was young. He needed that. And so, he's a guy that he's got the skills to go do it on his own probably at some point. So.
Yeah. You said something in your pre-pod interview that said getting too far down the rabbit hole, picking your head up and realize I'm not even sure I want to be in this business. There's a real big lesson in that I think our audience needs to hear.
Right.
I think a lot of people do things because they think they're cool.
100%. Yeah.
They do things because they think that it's easy for them because they have a skill set or whatever in that area.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden they build like a services company and they're like, oh, shoot, I don't know if I really want to be in the services space. Yeah. Maybe I need to focus on building a product or something that's more recurring revenue based or something like that. What were you saying when you typed that into the pre-pod question?
I think that means, I think for me, like what happens is you start a business, and there's an all-in moment that comes in all businesses, I think, right? There's this moment that comes where it's like you got to shove it all in.
Yeah.
And if you don't love what you're doing, and you don't really, really care, you're gonna stumble, or you're gonna sidestep that moment,
right? And
then you're not gonna do what needs to be done to make it grow. And so I think if guys get into something, it's like, oh, this is a good idea. Bro, like you're going to have that moment. Like you will. Or you're just going to start a little hobby thing or like a little lifestyle business. Yeah. Right. And we've talked about that. If you want to do a business that does like say $500 to $1 million a year, you might not ever have that, right? Your overhead's not going to ever get that big, right? But when your payroll starts to tick, like for us, it's $250,000 a month, right? In payroll, it's like, that's a lot, man.
Totally. Well, I get it, dude. I mean, I never wanted to start a gym.
Yeah.
I just have a gym.
You had to. Yeah.
We'll do 1.2 this year.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not retiring off of that.
You're probably taking very little of that, really.
Yeah. I mean, we net pretty good. I mean, just because of the way that we've structured the business, and our overhead cost is low because it's a warehouse gym, you know?
Yeah, it's true.
But
a lot of guys don't realize $1 million is not
less than 4% of companies make it to $1 million.
Really?
Yeah. So for a boutique style gym, that's amazing.
Really, really good.
Less than 80% of the companies that sell in this country sell for less than $1 million.
Really?
But it's one of those things where
I guess I'm all messed up on that because I look at it and I go, that's just like, okay, that's like literally like step one. Right?
No, I totally agree with you. I had somebody reach out to me and say, hey, I'm starting a boxing gym.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to invest? And I said, if I knew then what I know now,
never.
I don't think I would want to do it. And I said, this business is going to do over $1 million this year, but show me your business plan. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm really in the business of brokering, consulting, private equity.
Yeah, for sure.
content creation. That's the business that I'm really in.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's fun. But do I want to go scale that long term? Probably not.
No.
So I do find myself at times going, we got trainers and people that we're responsible to. And I'm like, maybe I just need to move to this advisor seat and step out and let somebody else run the company.
I think you're always thinking that, right? Like, I think that you wake up and you go, maybe, and there's, I don't know if it's self-doubt. I don't think there's a lot of that. It's just like going like, is this the best use of my time? And also what happens also, you start a company and then your skill set maybe outgrows that company. You go, well, now I think I could, like you said, recurring business. Like if I was going to tell a young entrepreneur, I'm like, dude, if you can have somebody's credit card on file
that runs every month,
tick that thing every month, and you can provide a high level where they're happy to have you tick it. That's magic, dude.
It is magic. And that's the hard part, like about real estate, right? Like on the brokering side,
big game hunting every day, man.
Every single day. So that's why every smart real estate broker gets into the investment side because they're looking for that consistent cash flow.
Dude, buy them, right? And that's the most fun, right? You can look at that spreadsheet and go, okay, if I bump rents by 8% this year, right? And then you start to, when it gets big enough, you go, okay, that's going to uptick. Say if I can grow $58,000 to $60,000 a year in like net rents, right?
Yeah.
Okay, now it works.
Yeah, those are those little dials on the on the P&L. Mm-hmm. What was the hardest part for you guys over the last 2 years? I mean, that's a lot of different moving parts to a lot of different companies.
I think we're fresh out of COVID right now, and COVID was a scary moment for us. I think we all thought like it's all going to end,
Yeah.
And so then like this kind of like, okay, we're going to take a step back, and then all of a sudden, wait, never mind, like everything's going to blow up, it's going to go big. Right. And so like that kind of like knee jerk reaction to what COVID did was hard on us. But I think, man, it would take me a second to really dig in on like what specific, like one thing was like the hardest thing for me or just the businesses. I mean, because they're different, I think there's things that the business can struggle, and I don't take it too personally.
Yeah.
And then there's the things that really hit me,
What are the things that really hit you?
Feeling like as we start to buy into or invest in other companies that we're going to dump, say that it's when as a family company, we take money from one company that looks like profit, and we put it in another company because we're going to double down on an opportunity that we think is there. Right. And then that one doesn't work. And then the other company's going, hey man, you guys screwed up and now we need that money.
Right.
And so that's one weird thing. If you're going to own multiple, like you kind of have to silo those companies.
Yep.
It all does ultimately flow up to the parent company, but it's hard to like kind of delineate when that happens. Like at what point is that now mine versus the company's money? Because you as a founder, you go, well, it's all mine. Well, it's really not when you put a CEO in the place. Right. Like it's theirs. It's the company's money until there's that moment where you're okay, that's dividend, it's paid, it's been allocated, it's gone. Mm-hmm. Right. You start to dabble and you start to like, I've done too much of that where I'll like take what, sits in an account that maybe nobody knows is there, but it probably should stay there for operational expenses and things, that growth.
Yeah. Fighting your ego, man.
Yeah.
As the business owner, the thing we always got to remember is the only thing we're entitled to are profits.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But not operating cash flow.
And that profit number keeps kicking down the road as you grow.
Correct.
Right. So you think, well, we had a year we did, 700,000 net. And I think I took like 60 grand, because I looked down the road and I went, okay, but if we want to get where we're going,
right.
Like we're going to need all that let's say 500, we're going to need that for next year. Right. Yep. And so you could just, you could go do a lot of fun things with that, but you just don't get to, man.
Delayed gratification.
But in a company, it's like, how far do you delay it?
No, I get it.
You can forever delay it. It's that horizon effect of the company, because as it continues to grow, you keep putting in. And the second I think that you see a bunch of profit, it probably means that you've stopped growing and you're going to die soon.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it's like profit is the caboose on the train, right?
Yeah.
And it's the last thing to come over that hill. And so if all of a sudden, boom, you had this like big year, you better start like, it always almost scares me. Like, what are we doing wrong? Because we really should, like in roofing, like we should always be buying more material, another truck, another guy, growth, right?
Yep.
So probably generationally, like neither one of us have a generational company where we're taking over Pops' company and it's been going for 30 years. But when you're in that first 10-year period, you're not going to see it, man.
The way I explained to somebody this morning, I was like, profit, cash flow, money, that's like blood, and you're building a heart.
Yeah.
And
it's the oxygen.
if you have a great heart, but you got no blood, it don't matter.
It ain't going to pump.
It's
nothing to pump it, right?
It's totally useless.
So that's an answer I don't know. I don't know that. That's what you guys are here for, right?
Yeah.
But it is as you grow, man, you're always doubling down on yourself. You're doubling on the company. And dude, we're making money along the way. Don't get me wrong. But it isn't like I said, you can have 700,000 hit the account and you take 60, 70 of it. as a dividend. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think you have to be more obsessed with growing the business and living off of the essentials. Like I can live, my whole family can live off of like 80, 85. My whole family.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Most people can't say that.
No.
Yeah, I get people making more money than me, right?
Mm-hmm.
On quote unquote paper on their W-2.
Yeah.
And they're, buying extra houses and driving all the cars and going on the vacations and all that, but when everybody's playing checkers, we're playing chess, right? We're on the 10-year.
Yeah, dude. And that's where I'm at, right? Like I don't know, but I used to think about retirement. I was like, I want to retire by X number, like whatever date, whatever age. I don't even see that coming at this point. Like I like the game, dude. I want to continue the pressure cooker that is entrepreneurship has helped me find just these deep, dark corners of my soul.
Yeah.
And I love that part of it. It's just, it's the weight room. It's the same thing.
Dan Sullivan, you know who he is? Strategic coach.
Yep.
He talks about the 4 freedoms, freedom of time, money, relationship, and purpose, So you're cracking number 4 right now, which is you got time freedom.
Yeah,
you get to choose how you use it. You got money freedom. You got enough. Relationship freedom. You don't have to work with people you don't like. You know what I mean?
certainly do not. Yeah.
And now you're on the purpose side, which is like, hey, we're building something bigger, a legacy. We got people we're responsible to. I can give back more in my community, in my church, or whatever it might be. So I totally relate to that, which is exciting.
And I love Dan Sullivan, and that's one key I'll tell any entrepreneurs. Like, I mean, I don't have my phone in the room with us here, but like, I can show you pictures of bookshelves. So if I go into, I do some work at the company. They do about 120 million a year. And I went to the CEO's office, and he wasn't there, of course, because he's doing other things today.
Right.
But his bookshelf's littered with books, you know. And so I take pictures of him. When I got to go in Kurt Richardson's house in his office at Otterbox, I took a picture of his bookshelf.
What's in his library, man?
I just want to know what's in people's library, man. Like that's just it. Like if that's the cracking the code of like what successful people do, they read.
Yes.
And so it's like that's been a habit of mine since I was a young kid, man. Like if I saw. Like do what you do, right? Like when you don't know what to do what they do, right?
So good. I actually just I dropped an article on the website that I called the Entrepreneurial MBA. It's got a photo of a guy getting punched in the face. It's hilarious. But I basically tried to take, because one of the challenges with books is they lack context. So you read it and you're like, well, how do I apply this?
Agreed.
So I broke them down by the 8 core concepts of like, hey, this is about leadership. This is about finance.
So if you were going to put shelves up in your office, you might you stack them up this way.
Yeah, because you might look at that and say, I'm really skilled in the sales area.
Yeah.
But leadership, I'm weak. Finance, I'm weak.
Yeah.
So it's important to read and grow, but also like understand what am I consuming and is it helping me grow in the week?
1,000%, dude. And I did that early on. It was like, remember the first time I went to an all-you-can-eat buffet when I was in like high school, I ate I wanted to eat one of everything.
Yeah.
And I've used this story. So people that know me, like I'm sick of Brian telling this story, and I did that with education too. Like with books, I read everything, dude. Every book I could get my hands on, and I almost didn't have enough time to digest it all, right?
Right.
And so now I'll pick a principle of some kind, and I'll read around that principle. So I might pick up a book and just take what I want out of that one book, right? And go, okay, I'm focused on this today.
Yeah.
Or this month or this year,
Right. It's where I need to grow. It's where I'm weak.
So really being like, okay, this is what I want to eat. I'm going to digest it. I'm going to think about it and really learn from it, right?
So good.
So I love that, man. It's a great way to break it down.
What's your outlook on just kind of the future economy, industries you're in? What are the challenges you guys kind of see coming down the pipe?
I mean, employees is a challenge right now. Finding people that actually like swing a hammer right now is a tough piece on the trade side.
Yes.
We're having a hard time finding guys there. That incoming dollar per hour is going up. We're having to pay more and more and more for the trades. So that's been a challenge, I think, for a lot of guys in the home building or the services industry is finding people to do the work.
Yeah, how do you? Because I feel like there's a massive gap in the market in general because they've been telling you to go to college and get a 4-year degree. Nobody's going to trade school. My dad went to a trade school.
Yeah,
right. That was like the path. That was a normal thing when he was growing up in the 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
So nobody does that anymore. How do we overcome that?
Valuing it socially, right? Like it's just like. Is it okay to have some dirt on your jeans,
Yeah.
And is it okay to like wear an old pair of boots?
Was that a country western
there is
song?
There is something.
Got a little dirt on my boots.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. And it's actually funny. I was telling somebody there's a Jamie Johnson song where he says an old pickup truck means you're down on your luck. And but it didn't used to, right? Like you used to be able to drive an old truck and it was just like, everybody's got a new car today, man. And when you look and it's just like, dude, where are we at? Like that will shift. Right.
Sign of the times for sure, man.
That'll shift.
Most of the people growing up right now over the last 20, 30 years, 40 years even, have not experienced like what our grandparents went through. in the 20s and the 30s,
Right.
going through World War II. I mean, that was a different time, man.
Yep.
I still have pictures of my grandfather when he was like in his 60s. He'd still eat toast with butter and black coffee, like he was in the Depression.
Yeah, they still eat like they're in the Depression. Right?
They just like canned goods all over the walls and stuff, and like he knew how to garden, he knew how to fix stuff. He never threw away anything.
Yeah,
you know, and we just live in so much abundance that we've almost become gluttonous as a society on how we're managing our time and our money. And
and I tinker with that even a little bit with clothing and just doing some minimalistic stuff around. Like if you could literally see me tomorrow, I would be wearing the same outfit.
Yeah. I mean, I wear one style of shirt. It's built apparel, fits me perfectly.
Yeah,
wear it same time.
Sponsors or something?
No, but
on,
candidly, if you guys are watching this, I'd love to have you sponsor
Samson
me.
would love some more shirts and actually send some double X's too, because I could use that's a
He's
good
just mad
shirt,
because
bro.
I got a broader chest than he does right now.
Man, right now. He's wearing that flannel built up. Yeah.
What are you most excited about right now?
You know, for me, really taking on that next step in the business world around building a bigger team, right? So now pulling in, okay, let's step into that capital side and see who's out there that's wanting to play with money.
Yeah.
And now I feel like I've got the skill set to say I can be trusted with that money. We can go do something else with it. And so
I know a guy.
Yeah, exactly, right. And so it's just, I think that's what I'm most excited about is I'm, you know, I've kind of got the chops, I feel like, as I've gotten to sit at some big tables.
Yes.
And there's names that I like can't say just because of just non-disclosure stuff, but like I'll sit there and I'm finding like, oh, I know, like I know what's up, you know. And it just took a long time, dude. I mean, I've sat at tables with like, you know, billionaires, and two things came out of that. Like, for one, I was like, I'm a happy guy. Like, I'm okay. Like, I don't need to be him.
I need $1 billion. Yeah.
I don't need $1 billion. In fact, like, you know, even like the hunting side, like I'll show them pictures and like they're showing me like their picture of like their paid for hunt. Like, and this experience
of wild rhino in Africa.
Yeah, that they were paying what they wanted to pay for. Ultimately, like, not to get into like that theoretical side of like they wanted that brotherhood and that adventure.
Right.
And so ultimately, like, that's what they're after, right? And that's what we're all after. And I think that's why I like businesses. It's scary.
Yep.
There's a really good chance of failure. And that hunting provides that same thing. Like it's a 50-50. And so I think for business, one thing that if you are an entrepreneur, you're going to find yourself doing is like you're always pushing yourself into like, you know, okay,
the next level,
next level, because that's what you're in it for. You're in it because you want that, right? You want that juice, that arena. I had a buddy I was with this weekend that Jesse decided he was going to be a bullfighter, and he's a former Marine. And I'm like, I didn't even have to ask him. I was like, it's because you need to feel that. And he's like, yeah, dude, I just want to feel that juice. Yeah, exactly. And so he had a picture on Instagram, his face all fucking tore up. You know what I mean? I'm like, what are you doing, bro? But I knew, right? I knew what he was after.
Yeah, that's so good. Well, let's have a deeper conversation about that on the private equity side, because
man,
I think there's a massive opportunity, especially because you have these businesses that could easily roll up.
Yep.
And, you know, in order to be good at private equity, you need to have good operators that you can trust.
Yeah.
And these boomers have been in the professional services industry. So one of the things we were talking about hiring,
right?
One of the things, if everybody's struggling for the same talent, but all of a sudden you just go own the market. Like I just buy up all the small HVAC guys and roll them up into one, and I own all the talent. There's only one place to work now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
And you solve that problem pretty quick.
Yep.
And I think that a lot of these boomers, you know, it's hard to grow a business. It's even harder to sell it.
Yeah.
And so they're looking for a way out. So there's some good opportunity for creative financing, better term deals.
How do you, so two things that happen, and just if we're being honest about that, like, so when I hear that, I go, God, that's going to mean a lot of lifting for me, a lot of work.
Sure.
Right. And so as somebody in my position, like, you've got to know how to structure it in a way that you go, okay, I'm not going to be the guy doing the heavy lifting.
Yeah.
The other thing is we've bought a couple of companies that we just quickly sold again or gave back of, a small HVAC company, for example, where when you got the primary operator there is used to literally taking that bank account to zero every month.
Yeah.
And he's taking it all for himself. And he goes, I want you guys to buy me. And you go, cool. But you don't get to do that anymore. And it just doesn't work. Like, you know, that guy has to be ready or in that position where you go, okay, but your salary is going to be this.
Yes.
No more company credit card vacations.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You don't get to go buy a new rifle.
I would say if you have an owner like that, they got to go.
They got to go. And that's just it. Like, you got to be, you're gonna.
Yeah, you just say, hey man, appreciate you.
Round them up, you know. But
here's what our looks like. We're gonna unwind this information. Here's your earnouts attached to us being able to get this stuff, and then we have a team that's gonna come in and run it. Because in every situation that I've ever talked to somebody, one of the other guests, John White, he bought a printing graphics company, And the guy had all this esoteric knowledge, so he was afraid to let him go. He was the
tribal knowledge.
He was the best guy, but he was the most toxic person in the entire organization.
100%.
As soon as he canned him, culture got better. They started growing again. It's like it's not as scary as you think. I think the problem is you got to have a system to go in and diagnose.
And that's where like the consulting side that you guys look at that. And
You have the, hey, this is how we think about the business. Peel apart this part: foundational, structural, functional. Here's all the players, who owns what, where's our documented SOPs, all that stuff.
Yeah.
If we don't have it, that's our red flags, and then we can negotiate based off of that.
How do you balance that? Like, okay, so you come in and it's a shit show, because of course it is, right? And like there's got to be a limit if there's just like no SOPs, and you're like, I'm not willing, like you're not far enough along, kiddo,
correct,
for me to take you on. So it's like finding that guy that's like, if he's got it tuned up and he's good, he's not selling, right? Because he doesn't, he works for 2 hours a day. Yeah. The guy that's got everything in place, and it's find that guy that's right in the middle, right, where there's enough pain he wants to sell to you,
right,
or she wants to sell to you, but they've also built enough like culture's just good enough, structure's just good enough, and the margin's there, right there.
Yep.
Right? So that's that deal flow opportunity. That's that magician piece that we talked about, those archetypes, right? Of like, okay, this is one I can take on, right?
I think a good deal smacks you in the face. It's not, you go, oh my gosh. If you're like, well, it could be if we do, it's not a good deal. I think the key is to find the entrepreneur who's really the lead actor with a supporting cast.
Yep.
And they haven't quite transcended to the CEO.
They haven't added those skills.
So they got like a lot of the stuff, but they're not quite
or even those guys that want to stay in that technician role.
Yeah.
Right. And they go, hey, I got something here. Like, it can be really good, but I really don't want to leave the field. I'm out in the field. I like being in the field.
100%.
And you go, perfect, man. Cool.
Yeah.
You stay there. We're going to take this and go here. And I've got one of those now where he had X, a purchase price of this, and he says, man, like, they won't even buy it for that because I don't have these things in place. I said, cool, I'll come in and help, but I want anything above that 2 million number is me.
And I think that's a massive opportunity too for people to say, hey, if you're thinking about selling, well, we got to start preparing now in the next 3 to 5 years. If
3 years from now, you'll be ready.
It's going to take a while to pivot this and get all these ducks in a row and do that. But I'll give you an example. I have a friend, grew a really big business. He's doing $20+ million a year, just northern Colorado.
Yep.
Doesn't go north of Wyoming, doesn't go south of Longmont.
Yeah.
Struggling to sell his business because though he thinks he's not involved, he's still pretty involved.
Yeah.
Enough to where private equity shop comes says, hey, we'll pay you a bunch, but you're going to have to stay.
I need you for 5. Yeah.
But I get a Brian Trainor and I go, hey, I can't pay you that. We can pay you $4 or $5 million less, but you can retire tomorrow. There's no 7-year earnout. All of a sudden we win the deal on terms, not on price.
Yeah.
And that's magic. There's going to be a ton of that going on. You know what I'm saying?
I agree completely.
They're everywhere. I heard one last week where the guy was trying to sell his business for 2 years for $2 million. He ended up taking $700,000 and walking away because that's what he needed to just retire. He was over it. You know what I mean? So opportunity is abound.
Yep.
If you want to be an entrepreneur, you listen to this podcast, I'm telling you, entrepreneurship through acquisition might be the best and cleanest path.
Completely. I agree with that.
Get to know your SBA lenders, start following the content that we're putting out, come to the entrepreneurship through acquisition summit that we're going to be doing at the end of this year.
Love it.
And that is your path to make the transition.
I agree, man. I agree that, and then you can go fund that from a bank.
Yes.
Rather than like you're bootstrapping and you got this 10 years. People don't understand how much you starve in the first 5 to 10 of the business.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And if you can just buy something, you use bank money to buy it.
Yes.
This whole bootstrap thing is like not as romantic as people think it is.
No, because you're getting probably at least 2 years, 3 years ahead minimum.
Minimum. Yeah.
And shoot, maybe even more than that.
Agree.
If you weren't in this business, what would you be doing? If you weren't doing these 5 different companies, I know you got some other things.
I got a couple things like kind of coming. Yeah. So we're
can't talk about. Can you just
sort
give
of,
us a
man?
little
like we're working
teaser?
on one in the app space, which is just like I feel like it's a little bit like when I hear young guys say I'm an entrepreneur, I'm like, sure you are, bro.
Yeah.
But in that app space, I'm working on one pretty heavy there that really like fills my heart.
Yeah.
It'll be in that it'll be in the outdoor kind of adventure space.
Sweet.
Just connecting sort of that person to the people they're buying stuff from. So we're going to try and capture that audience and have them buy with in-app purchase stuff. So working on that, that'll be fun. I have a couple businesses in the back of my head. I would take care of the baby boomer generation right now if I could.
Yeah.
I have a business drawn up that's there that would kill it. I just don't have the margin right now to start that.
Yeah, the margin and the brain margin too.
That's what exactly is the brain margin for it. Then it starts something from zero, but that's one that's like if I was just starting from zero, that's what I would do.
Yeah.
Is I'd focus on that baby boomer and how they're you have a lot of people going to nursing homes that don't need to be going to nursing homes, right? And so keeping them in their homes, that's what I'd focus on, is taking care of that group.
Ton of opportunity to help those people.
Yep.
All right, well, let's land the plane.
Yeah, no, sorry, man.
No, you're good. This has been great, man. I could keep.
Me too. I could talk all day long about this.
Yeah, you've never had a problem with that.
No, dude.
Best book or piece of content that you think every entrepreneur should be reading?
Traction.
Traction.
Gino
Let's
Wickman.
go.
Yeah.
I'm a huge EOS guy.
Yeah.
Every company I run on the EOS system.
Yeah, I think Traction's a huge piece, and I haven't taken we met with Jen Lewis, who's a local EOS
really?
implementer, and just a plug for Jen. She's a legend, man, and she's a savage. Like she's good, and
I need to meet her.
Yeah, you really should. And but I love Traction. For one, it gave me freedom to be the visionary. So when I read it, I was like, oh, thank God. It's the first book that's ever kind of gone like, hey, man, you're a real thing.
It affirmed you.
Yeah, it was full of affirmation. Actually, if you read the book, it talks about the technician first.
Yes.
And I'm like reading through the book. And I wish I had it because I have notes. I'm like literally in the margin, I'm like, I don't know if I can be this guy. Shit, I'm screwed. I better just shut it all down. That was like, and so then I flip the page and it's like visionary. And I'm like, oh, thank God. Thank God. And I was like, I remember I was on a vacation somewhere reading and I'm like, oh, thank God. I have. I'm a real thing, right? Like, because I always felt like this.
I'm a real boy.
I'm a real boy. Like, I just felt like I was like, man, I shouldn't, imposter syndrome is used a lot, but it was that as like, I bring guys in, I'm an idiot. And then these things have kind of been working. And when I saw that, I was like, thank God. So Traction for me, because it gave me permission to be me.
Yes.
But dude, the way they break down, here's how you have a meeting. Here's how here's how you have this conversation. Okay. Like keeping things on point, that EOS structure all together. It's a lot of work. We're not fully integrated in that, and I wish I was. I'm just not. But if I was going to read a book, it'd be Traction
for those
the
of you
side.
Yeah, for those who hadn't heard that, basically they classify two different types of people: visionaries and integrators.
Mm-hmm.
Integrators are a little bit more pragmatic and less visionary. They can see the vision and understand it, but they also know how to work on like what's important now, and then also they're good at managing visionaries. Like if you guys are listening to this podcast, what you're listening to is a guy who's a visionary.
Mm-hmm.
He's got 10 ideas a week, 9 of them are garbage, but one of them's the one that actually you need to push the business forward. You need those people. The problem with like pure visionaries is they can be all gas, no brakes.
Yep.
And that can end badly.
Yep.
It's really hard to build a sustainable company if you're just all gas, no brakes.
100%.
So you need an integrator. Some people can be both. I tend to be a little bit more both, but I really struggle to limit my visionary. I really have to.
Yeah.
It's a constant battle between.
Yeah.
Let's do this.
Me
Why
too.
are we going to do it right now? So
And I think as you get older, you get better at that, and it takes a lot of emotional intelligence. I think if you're a visionary to like be a good visionary of going like, I'm going to put an idea out there.
yes,
And if you guys tell me I'm an idiot, that's okay.
it's okay. I'm not going to take it personal.
No, yeah, exactly. And just go like, I had one of my like key guys kind of go like, hey, one thing I learned from Brian is like, don't be afraid to look stupid, you know? And he was like, I'm so sorry, man. I'm like, no, man, you're exactly right. Like, yeah, I'm not afraid of looking dumb.
Yeah,
Not
you
at all.
can't. We ain't got time for that.
Nope.
All right. So what do you think is the key to people who become successful entrepreneurs, those who give up, quit, or never get started?
Man, I think it's a lot to do with that all in moment. Like, like, are you all in on this thing or not? Are you willing to lose everything to do this? Zero's not that bad. I mean, I had that great experience as a kid of being a zero, like not like having a home to live in or whatever.
It's
and
the
like,
best.
yeah. And so I think if you have blessed to ever in your life be at like a rock bottom, like you see a lot of recovered alcoholics, people that are in like now in a sober journey of their life are very good entrepreneurs.
Yes.
Because they're not afraid of zero. And you more than likely will never get there because a true zero is not losing your business, right? This is just a game. It's bullshit.
Yeah, it's not real. It's made up, man.
And so I think when you put too much of your identity into your business, and you get too caught up in that, that's when you'll fail, right? Like, remember, it is what it is. It's not you. You know what I mean? There's a lot more in this life than just this business. It's just a thing that we go to practice, and it's just a game.
So good. Well, there's a late start entrepreneur listening to this right now. They're at their job. They just passed up on another promotion. Their values no longer align with the company.
Yep.
About every 3 months, they're thinking about just quitting, and they haven't done it, but they want to.
Right.
What piece of advice would you give them?
I think there's an opportunity for that guy to step into an existing business that current operator, owner, founder is he wants to leave. He's done. He doesn't have the skills to take it to the next level. And I think coming from that corporate world, there's a lot of skills. What's a quarterly reviews and things that can be applied.
Right.
That I think that's where if I was a late start entrepreneur, I would probably find that guy or gal that has started something, but they've outrun it. It's outrun them maybe. Yep. And go in and say, hey, like I can add some structure here. I'm going to take an equity play. You know what I mean? Come in and go, I'm going to do this good contract in place and say, I maybe bring a little bit of cash, because they usually, that late start probably has, they've got a decent bonus structure at their current job. They've got
50,
100 in the bank, and that 100, that capital infusion could mean the world to that small company, but it's going to buy you a large percentage of that equity, and you're going to earn out the rest, So that's where I'd probably step in is like, you know that company, and I know that company today. Yeah. There's 10 of them. Yep. And it would not be hard to come in and just be the hammer. Not in a bad way, just kind of start to implement some SOP, educate on SOP, educate like a traction type book, tune up on that and come in, you'd have a lot of success and probably more actually than,
So good, dude. I love you, bro, man. I appreciate you being here and sharing your wisdom. If people wanted to get a hold of you, follow along with what you got going on, is there a place you hang out on social?
I'm so bad at that stuff.
LinkedIn?
Yeah, I think I have a LinkedIn,
Email?
Yeah, email. Yeah. No, I mean, LinkedIn, I'm on LinkedIn. Yeah. Brian, I think it's Brian Trainor, Brian James Trainor, and then 970 Trainer on Instagram. I'm not super active there, but I keep track of my buddies. I got a lot of buddies that I follow just to see what they're up to. And then email 970trainer@gmail is my email. And I love connecting with people. If somebody wants a cup of coffee, I'm always up for it. But they have to send me the 10 questions they're going to ask me because I hate wasting my time.
Candidly, though, I think you need to create more content. You got a lot to say. I love your thoughts.
Yeah, it's fun.
We should have a different conversation about that. But hey, real quick, guys, if you want to get daily emails sent to your inbox to help you level up on your entrepreneurial journey, we have a premium service. We send out news on economics, what's happening in the market, brand, mindset, sales, leads generation, all things that you need to be paying attention to every single day. Like you talked about, if you're an optimizer of your business, in order to stay tip of the sword. So head on over to painttoprofit.co to do that.
Does that cost anything, Samson?
The yearly subscription is $249 a year.
Cheap.
It's less than your daily cup of coffee.
And I'd say that if I spend at the minimum a couple $1,000s a month tuning myself up, right?
Let's go.
And so if these guys, if you aren't willing to spend $250 for somebody that's curating out, dude, even that book list is worth $250. And I'm not trying to plug you. I don't
free.
give a shit, man. But like, honestly, like if you're an entrepreneur and you aren't dumping some of your cash back into yourself, you will fail. Right. And it's like, if somebody's out here and you're willing to like kind of pull out those books from me and go, hey man, here's in this sector, these books, like that's a gift. And that's being free. Like that's crazy. Honestly. Like, I mean, that's just like, it's hard. It's a lonely journey. You're at the top, man. And like nobody calls you and goes, how's your day? How many people call you in a day, Samson? I know we're running low on time. How many people call you in a day and go like, how's your day, buddy?
Yeah, no, it's my wife.
Your wife, if like, as long as you're being good to her.
Yep, exactly.
You know what I mean? But like more than likely you can get home and go, I made $1 million today. And she goes, did you remember the milk? Right.
Yeah. Did you pull the trash out?
Yeah, for sure. And so, but I interrupted you, but I wanted like, that's a piece. Like you guys are doing good things. Dudes should be, gals could, pay for that, man. Like that's a bargain,
Yeah. I mean, we're on a mission to simplify business, right? And help people start, build, buy, and sell their companies.
It's hard.
And it's hard. There's no good information out there. Less than 9% of entrepreneurs have MBAs. And so we see the gap in the market is nobody's doing a good job to support the entrepreneur on that journey. And, there's 5.3 million new businesses formed every single year. There's only 5.9 employing companies. So it tells you a lot about who makes it and who doesn't.
Dang,
right?
dude.
Yeah. So people are getting their butts kicked. So we're trying to solve that. And we just love business and we love the game. Yep. And we believe that God put everybody here with a reason and a purpose. And more people were stepping into that, doing that, executing that, the world would be a much better place. So
yep. We didn't touch on that, but I agree with you too. Like I think for entrepreneurs, like I talked to a lot of men, it's like, if you don't believe you're here, like created for a purpose, with like your gift to us, like you're going to fail there too. Like that's a big piece of it for us, man.
100%, man.
So,
well, thanks again, bro. I appreciate it. And I can't wait when you drop that app. Can we get you back on the pod?
Yeah. I would love to do it, man. I really would. I just, I'd pitched that up to maybe the biggest guy in the country and he said, let's go. And then he ghosted me, bro. So I'm sort of keeping it like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Behind the curtain a little bit until we get it out there, but meeting with the attorneys on just protecting some of the IP around that. And
let's go.
Once we get that tuned up, then we'll be ready to roll.
Hopefully by then our platform will be 10x bigger.
Let's go. Get it out there.
All right, bro. Appreciate you,
man. Thank you.
Until next
time. Appreciate you.